Happy Friday to you. It is the 19th of November, 2021. And I thought I'd come on and talk to you guys and tell you a little bit about myself. Big part of who I am is my Army career, the soldier within. And one of the things I thought I'd share with you is how I became a soldier, how I got into the Army, why I went into the Army, and a little bit, and just a little bit, because everybody's story is it's a lifetime story, and it's a lot. So I'll try and do a little bit in a short period of time and not overwhelm with so much information. I won't try and fit my whole life story into this video. So brief history overview, and in later videos I might get into more greater detail when it's pertinent, or I have something that I want to discuss about that. So I joined the Army in 1999. I did a delayed entry program contract in, I believe it was November of 1998 or something like that. My youngest son was just about, he just turned a year, and he was born in November 97. So in November 98, he was just barely a year old, and I made a decision to join the Army. I was a father. I was married. I had 2 children. I had a 6-year-old and just a little guy, 2 boys, and no education really, aside from a few college classes at the junior college here, and no high school diploma. In fact, I survived my childhood. I come from a background, we were what would be considered by the system as an underprivileged family, low income. There were times when my dad would go to the church and get food because we didn't have enough money to buy food to eat, or we would be on food stamps. Nowadays they have what's called an EBT card. These were actually, they looked like paper checks, and you would give them to the cashier, and there would be a list of items that you can purchase with them. And then you would just go and buy those things, if I recall, or that could be the WIC stuff. But I do remember my mom having a book of food stamps back in the day when I was a kid. I also experienced a lot of abuse and neglect mostly from my parents. My parents weren't abusive in a more conventionally acknowledged sense of the word. My parents didn't beat me. They didn't really berate me, but they didn't know how to build me up and set me up for success and give me structure and give me the things that I needed to be successful in life, other than watching my father get up and go to work 6 days a week to support his family. And my parents loved me. There's never a question about that. They just didn't know how to raise a child to be successful in the world. They were both survivors in their own right. So it's not like they were bad people. They weren't bad. My parents are very, very loving. My mom, she passed away 2015, but my parents were loving parents. They just didn't have the resources available because of their own background. So I survived my childhood, and I have other abuses that came from outside the home. And it was really it was a miracle that I even made it to the age of 18, to be honest. I would have been one of those kids that would have most likely have taken their life as a teen suicide for whatever reason. I think it had to do with music. Music was something that kept me in school, and it kept me going, even though my academic career in junior high school and high school didn't go well at all. And because I was experienced a lot of distress as a child, I wasn't able to maintain passing grades, and I was basically a child left behind pushed through the system, grade after grade after grade, with no hope of success in the system, in primary, secondary, high school education, or even a chance to go to college. And I married my high school sweetheart. I met her when I was 17 years old, just before she turned 14. We've grown up together and have known each other for over 30 years. She's the mother of my children. She's been the best friend to me, even though I may not have been the best friend to her. And she's looked after me. And honestly, I needed someone to look after me because I did not know how to take care of myself, and I did not know how to function in the world around me. So, why the Army? Why the military? Well, I'm originally from Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, and Pearl Harbor's there. And it's Honolulu, Pearl City. It's a military base there, Pearl Harbor, and the surrounding, military bases on the island. It's kind of like the far reach. Prior to World War II, was a far reach for the United States military forces, and we moved the United States government moved the Seventh Fleet there from San Diego in 1940 because of the threat of Japanese aggression in the Pacific, and they needed a little bit more reach because of interests that the United States had, territories, um, Commonwealth interests, like Wake and other islands, Midway, other islands they needed to protect. So anyway, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, Honolulu, that's where I'm from. Military bases there, World War II. So early in my life, very early in my life, 5 years old, 6 years old, I started having this fascination with the Second World War, and I would watch war movies, the John Wayne movies, other movies. There were television shows. Of course, MASH was on. That was Korean War, but it was military oriented, army oriented. Um, there was this wonderful show I really loved called Baba Black Sheep, later retitled Black Sheep Squadron, and it had to do with a Marine squadron, Marine Fighter Squadron 214 in the Pacific, fighting the Japanese in VOT F4U Corsair fighters. And they would have this awesome theme song at the beginning, and the footage of these airplanes with their dark blue gold wings just was just captivating for me, and I just loved it. And then there were shows that were in syndication, like there's a show called Combat. It had to do with World War II, and like I said, many war movies at the time. Of course, more recent war movies like Tora Tora Tora, which was, and then Midway, the Battle of Midway, not Midway that was released a couple of years ago, but Midway, I think it was like 1970, 71. The Battle of Britain, um, The Longest Day, The Battle of the Bulge. Anyway, you get the idea. All these war movies from World War II had really captured my attention. And so as I got a little older, I want to say third grade, second grade, I I checked out of the school library my first World War II books, and these were thick books for a little kid. Where when you're in second grade, it's more like comic books and picture books. But these books were uh, From Pearl Harbor to Okinawa by John Toland, The Sinking of the Bismarck by William F. L. Shire, and then The Battle of the Bulge. And forgive me if I cannot remember the name of the author. And these books had me fascinated, and I actually read them from beginning to end. And that began my journey toward learning about military history, World War II specifically. I remember going to the book fair and purchasing a couple of books that were about World War II. One was like a little graphic novel, what we would call a graphic novel today. And I have no idea what happened to it. It's a shame. And the other one was about D-Day, and it was mostly words, text, with a few pictures in the middle of it. And I can remember, like, there's this one famous picture of a squadron of P-38s taking the pictures taken of them from above, and you can see just all these airplanes with their white and black invasion stripes painted on the wings, and then other famous pictures that have been published thousands of times in books or in media, what we would call media today, uh, over and over again. Anyway, so World War II and World War II and World War II and World War II, and it became a fascination of mine. In fact, when I was in elementary school, they would call me a war freak. David, you're a war freak. David is a war freak. And it just adds to experiences of alienation that I had and am working to get over in my life today at almost 50 years old, being different. I wasn't into sports and other things. I was into history. So fast forward to adult life. I am a father at 19 years old. I took a test to get out of high school. I took the California High School Proficiency Exam. I did not get to graduate. I never had a chance to graduate. I never had a chance. Literally, I was a child and I wasn't set up for success. So the burden doesn't fall on my shoulders. It fell on the shoulders of those who cared for me and looked after me, who were responsible for me. That is my parents, the school faculty, and the teachers who could have intervened, who could have gotten me what I needed and did not. They failed. So I was failed by the system. This is why I value education so much. Um, I suffer from lack of it. And so, with no high school diploma, and no college degree in the 90s, I had and no vision because I wasn't afforded that. I was clinging for life, for dear life, and I clung to my ex-wife for dear life. Uh, if I didn't have a child at 19 years old, I probably wouldn't have survived to this long because my son Michael gave me a purpose being a father. And I look at my dad, and being a dad gave him a sense of purpose, I'm sure. So, anyway, I did go take college classes. And it just so happened that I had taken a few classes, just enough to qualify for military service. And, excuse me, and I had scored when I took the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test, which is the screening test for aptitude to see if you are mentally capable of performing jobs in the military. Every branch of the military, you have to take this test. It's a general test. It doesn't matter what branch you go into. Each branch may have their own specified test after that, but this is the general test for all services. It's a basic aptitude test, just to say, oh yeah, you're smart enough to read a technical manual and follow instructions. And based on how you score, you may have greater opportunities at the various jobs available in the military, depending on what branch you go into. So, what was the deciding factor? A movie. A movie. 3 words: Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan really struck me. It really hit me hard. I was at a moment in my life as a father of two young children, trying to make it, um, living in an apartment with my wife at the time who was working full time. God bless her for being so hardworking. And she actually has been the rock and stability in the family for many years because her parents, at least her being a teen mother, had the foresight to ensure that once she graduated from high school, that she go right into vocational training. And she did. She went to Heald Business College and got her accounting certificate and went on into better employment because she had better job opportunities because she had vocational training. I did not have that. And she worked, she had parents who at least her mother for sure was able to guide her and keep her moving in a direction where I didn't have that. So I ended up clinging on to her for dear life. And this is it's not a measure of who I am as a person. It's just as a kid, I did the best I could, and I'm not who I was then. I'm a more mature, and I've worked hard to develop the level of maturity and health that I have now. But it was um, it was because of Saving Private Ryan that I joined the Army, and my deep love and respect for the generation that fought World War II. Wow, I'm literally getting choked up here. How interesting, right? This is not by mistake. I I cried. That movie really it really hit me hard. It really, really hit me hard. I cried nearly throughout the whole movie. It was an intense experience, as if I was there. It's like my favorite war movie, and I can't watch it. I cannot watch the movie. I've seen it maybe 3 times in my whole life. Cannot watch it. No, no, no. Four, twice in the theaters, and maybe 2 or 3 times in on television, like on a DVD or whatever. I cried in that film. I cried walking out of the theater. I cried on the way home. I cried myself to sleep. I would wake up the next morning and cry. I would cry for days, for at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. I would be at work. I was working at a Big Five Sporting Goods, and I would just have to hold back my tears while working whenever I thought about Saving Private Ryan and what that generation went through. Those brave young, those courageous young people who that generation who gave up their tomorrows for our today. And I've always known the burden of responsibility that gets passed on from generation to generation. We owe it as a generation, as a contemporary generation, subsequent generations, to make the world a better place because of the sacrifices of that generation. All of them, not just those who went off and fought and died or were severely injured, forever changed, but the families of those who lost family members or family members who were affected as a result of going off and battling and conquering tyranny. So I felt I had really big shoes or boots to fill. And at this point, I had an opportunity to go into retail management at the Big Five Sporting Goods store that I was working at in their management trainee program. Now, I wanted better for my life and for my family. And my father worked retail most of my life. I used to sleep as a baby. I used to sleep in a shoebox. My dad sold shoes when I was born. And this is back when go-go boots first came out. So my mother would take me to the shoe store. It was in Honolulu, just a few blocks away from where we lived. And little baby David would be napping in a shoebox. And I learned how to treat people as I'd like to be treated from observing my father deal with customers. And um, that's kind of like how I am today. I'm not a very judgmental person. I never have been, really. I've been protective. In my defense, self defense, I may have been judgmental, But overall, I'm not a hypercritical person like many people are. They just look down. But I know, having experienced so much criticism and judgment in my life, inflicted by others or even self-inflicted, that I wouldn't want that put on me, so I'm not going to put that on somebody else. So, Saving Private Ryan. And I had a friend, or I had known a local recruiter because he had been a career Army recruiter. I'd seen him in the high school for many years. And somehow developed relationships with the local recruiting station. And I went in and I started talking. And I decided to give it a shot. And I really didn't think about what it meant to go into the Army, to go into the military, and what that would mean, how it would affect my family as a whole. I just thought of going into a job path or a career path, not even thinking career wise, just thinking, how can I do, how I just felt compelled that this is what I needed to do for me. And I really didn't think about how it would affect my family. I didn't think about where I would work. I didn't think about if I would move somewhere else. I had no foresight whatsoever. None. Like what my wife would do, what our, how we would deal with the kids. I had no idea. I just, like, I'm gonna go join the Army, and that's exactly what I did. And I passed the ASVAB, I passed the physical, and then but many people are mistaken in when they believe that a recruiter is the one that gets you your job. Recruiters they serve only one function, and that is to screen candidates for military service. And that's what they do. And they see, are you eligible? Let's interview you, and if you're curious, let's bring you to the next step, and then the next step, and then they take you to what's called a MET station. And then that's there that you take the ASVAB, and there you get your physical, regardless of what branch of service you're interested in. And then you see a career counselor. So I sat down with a career counselor for the Army, and that's how I figured out my job. Now, I'd always liked tanks. So when I was in high school, I always wanted to go to my senior ball in a Sherman tank. I love Sherman tanks. Sherman tankers who rode Shermans probably in war probably didn't really like their Shermans because they burned all the time. And they were good tanks, but they weren't great tanks. And many tankers were killed in Shermans at the hands of German Tigers or other Panzers during the Second World War, and even some in Korea. So, but the Sherman tank has had a very long service life in Israel, for instance, and in South America. I love the Sherman tank. So I always wanted to go to my high school senior prom and senior ball in a Sherman tank. Didn't happen. Didn't have a tank available, and I did not get to go to my senior ball, which sucks for me. So I joined the Army, and they said, at 27, I'm not 17 going in with the parents' permission. I'm not 18 or 19. I'm not some 22-year-old or 23-year-old going in with a bachelor's degree and a commission to be an officer. As this 27-year-old father of two, looking for better employment and not really knowing what to do. No guidance whatsoever on life, really, none. So, was this an informed choice? No, it wasn't. Not an informed choice, but I did the best I could. And so what they offered me was, I had taken language courses. So I studied Japanese language because, again, coming from Hawaii and having a interest in Japanese animation. So I said, oh man, what if I can get a job as a linguist? And that would be cool. Well, I didn't get that job myself at that time in my life. It took the Army to teach me, and it took me after the Army to teach me to learn how to really feel more firm and assertive in my life. Not aggressive in a defensive way, but more assertive in a self-advocating way. It took me years after the Army and being on my healing journey, like the last 12 years. So the career counselor says, well, I'll tell you what, you can we have 19 kilo. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. and it is so it's a 2-year enlistment. So you could, if you don't like it, for one, you're older, so it's not a lot of walking around, and two, it's a short enlistment, so if you don't like it, you can get out, and then you're good. So I said, okay. I found out 19 kilo is an M1 Abrams armor crewman. So tanks. How cool is that? Not Apache pilot, not a not linguist, not an intelligence analyst, not anything like that. But it is a cool job, and tanks are cool. And I remember seeing M1 Abrams tanks on a train one day when they were brand new to the Army. This was in the late 70s. I was in elementary school, and my dad was taking me. And where we lived, there's a rail yard next to the road that was from between our house and the elementary school. And I remember seeing these things sitting on the rail cars. God knows where the hell they were going. Maybe they were being sent to Korea or somewhere, or some Fort Lewis, Washington. I can say that now, being an Army veteran, knowing that, but I had no idea. And they looked rather odd the way that they were shaped. And the guns were pointed over the back deck of the tanks, and they seemed like very, very short guns to me. Unusual, but I was like, okay. But I remember seeing those in real life. And then I had seen an older tank as a monument in a park in San Francisco many years ago. It was an M41 Walker Bulldog, I believe. Or maybe it was like an M47 Patton or something like that. Anyway, it was across the street in this park by my aunt's house in San Francisco. So that was the first time I'd ever seen. Those were my first or only experiences of tanks. And then I joined the Army. I told my friends, told my wife. Didn't realize how it was going to impact my family. And so my birthday's in January 18th, and on January 19th, I left for the Army, day after my birthday. And I enlisted at the MAP station, raised my right hand. I do solemnly swear in the Constitution of the United States against all all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and so forth. I was then shipped off to Fort Knox, Kentucky. I did 13 weeks of one station unit training. I did push-ups to the Patton speech from the movie Patton. That's the other movie. For 13 weeks. It's about 5 minutes long. 5 minutes long of just straight up pushing the earth down. And I got strong and healthy. And I was never short of incredulous at my circumstances of being on the tank line in the motor pool around all these tanks and shining my boots and being in a uniform. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had an identity. There's a big difference for me between, what do you do for work? Oh, I work at Target, versus, what do you do for work? Oh, I'm a soldier in the United States Army. See the difference? It was a big deal for me, coming from no education and no professional identity, unskilled labor force, uneducated, unskilled labor force, to being a professional somebody. And I did 2 years in the Army, my initial enlistment, and I loved it. I loved being a soldier. I loved getting up and doing my job. I never was bored with it. And just when things get kind of monotonous, they send you to the field or some training exercise. And no day is just like the day before, because there's always something going on. Oh, there's a detail. We need 6 soldiers to do this, or you have a staff duty or CQ or something like that. And then I get to travel. So anyway, that is why I joined the Army, because I love my country, and I believe that our nation owes a debt of gratitude to those who came before us, who shed their blood and gave up their lives for the freedoms that we often take for granted, the freedoms that we enjoy that we take for granted. They were not given to us, they were paid for. And I am a testament to that, because I myself and my family sacrificed for your freedom, and for the freedom of people whom we don't even know, who speak languages we don't speak, who live in places that we've never heard of, just like that generation who went off to France, or the China Burma India Theater, or the Western Pacific, or the South Pacific, or Europe, or North Africa, or Italy, who airdropped into the Netherlands, and they didn't come home. There are thousands of crosses sprawled across the world of Americans who went off and gave their lives for people who were oppressed. This is true. This is not debatable. And they gave up their tomorrows for our today. And it's because of that, and my really, really understanding, seeing the degree and the depth of sacrifice, that I felt obligated or compelled to become a soldier. And it's the best. Being a tanker was like the best job I ever had. And I grew up in the Army in many ways. I survived my childhood, and the Army raised me, even as an adult in my 30s. The Army gave me so much. It named the value system that I adhere to today. And it's taken me a lot of work to truly embody all of those values, because of all the effects of the trauma that I experienced growing up as a child, growing up in a very unsafe environment. Actually, growing up in an unsafe environment served me in the combat zone. But I'll save that story for another time. And for now, I just wish to say thank you for spending time with me and taking an interest in my story, and why I joined the United States Army, and why I have been and will continue to always be a soldier, a warrior, a defender of the Constitution of the United States and its Bill of Rights, and the people that Constitution and Bill of Rights protect and serve. That document is my sovereign ruler. And so I owe my freedom to that and to those before me. And it's a lifetime commitment as far as I'm concerned. And I'm proud of my military service. And it's not been easy, and for me or my family. And as all the good, there's also things that were not so good, challenges. And no one gets out of war unscathed. I promise you that. So thank you, and have a great weekend, or whatever time it is that you are viewing this video. And you take care.